Hello, and thank you for watching this Ag Forecast for Australia, brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Now, I'm coming to you a little bit later than I normally do, and I know it's probably maybe midday on Friday, but it's midnight here for me on Thursday night, going into Friday morning, and I was waiting on getting some new long-range data that I'd like to share with you here. And it's all going to revolve around what's going on with this particular La Nina, and we're going to see what these trade winds are going to do, how the ocean temperatures are going to respond, and what that might mean for the next several months here in terms of precipitation over Australia. So we're actually going to cover that first tonight, and then we'll get into the details of the near-term forecast, and I'll finish with an update about what's going on around the rest of the world. So we know that over the last 2 months, this being the July 1st through August 31st precipitation anomalies map, that we've not deviated too terribly far from normal on our precipitation. Here's where we're kind of finishing the cool season. You can see that we've been wetter than normal around Perth, and we've also been wetter than normal in this part of New South Wales, drier in the interior, but some coastal regions have been drier too. Look at Tasmania. The windward side here definitely wetter than our leeward side, which has been drier than normal. You see, I'm assessing this because as we move forward, big questions about what's going to happen with our spring and eventually summer precipitation patterns are going to be tied to these ocean currents and the way that they are coupled with the atmosphere. And so we need to take a quick assessment of our soil moisture as well. Now, one of the things that's showing up quite regularly here is that, recently we've actually seen soil moisture values in through here as measured at kind of root zone depth, and also in the interior have started to kind of go more toward below average, in some places very much below average. So we've kind of seen this trend downward. And if we just step this back, let's just go back 1 month, back to the beginning of August. This is what the map looked like. So you see that over the month of August here, we have seen expansion of some of the drier regions. And the question is this going to lead into a drier spring, and what might that possibly mean? Now, I told you I was questioning what's going on with that La Nina because of this. Now, you all know I like to show this. This would be the Southern Oscillation Index. It's a pressure difference between Tahiti and Darwin, and why we use it is because when the pressure difference gives us a positive value of the Southern Oscillation Index, such that we're above a value of 7, we're generally looking at La Nina-like behavior in the atmosphere. When the values are below -7, it would be El Nino. And we saw coming out of July through the month of August, these values dropping. In fact, they've dropped back below that, that number 7 threshold, which technically would tell us that even though the ocean temperatures are still showing up cool, we are in more of an INSO-neutral pattern at this point. And until this kind of makes the turn and starts coming back up here significantly, where our numbers are routinely above the value of 7, then we won't really see the true effects of a La Nina spring. Now, we do know that looking historically, that while El Nino events, which are the spikes up on this graphic, often happen just one at a time. See these big El Nino events just spike up once. But our La Nina events are often, I call them double dippers. So it comes down one spring, summer, and then it comes back the next. And you can see that happening many times over the last 50 years. And so when we see that right now, we came off of this a year ago, the question is, what's the next one going to do? And we've been trying to address and answer that question for a while. But let's dig back into it one more time. You see, our global models suggest that as you go out here into, September, October, November, and then eventually October, November, December, that this cool water will be here. And the only way that it can really stay there is if those trade winds pick back up again. So we would look at this and say, well, the European model is really bought into developing La Nina this spring and then early summer. It also tends to gather quite a bit of warm water here with some cooler water, I'll put kind of C over it, here. And that would indicate a negative phase of the Indian Ocean dipole. Now, the reason why I bring this up is that both of these features tend to produce a lot of rising motion in this last circle that I'm drawing here, and that would tend to point toward a wetter spring and a wetter summer. But when we look at what BOM is currently saying, and we do need to, of course, take this into account, they're currently saying that right now, on their INSO outlook, things are inactive. And they've got it kind of explained here. They're looking at some of the subsurface cooling that we've observed in the ocean temperatures, and we've been certainly talking about that. But when they put on their chart here what we're currently experiencing, they would call it inactive, and that other things like the MJO, which of course we look at, and the southern annular mode are, as they say, going to play a bigger role in influencing the temperature and rainfall patterns. Now listen, this is important to understand, this paragraph right here, because the MJO and the southern annular mode, those particular features are subseasonal. They move on the timescales of days to maybe a couple of weeks. They don't change seasonally. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to have to watch that very, very, very carefully. Now, they claim in here that just a few of the models, 2 of the 7 models surveyed by the Bureau, say that La Nina conditions for late southern spring into early summer. And that's interesting because I looked at all the models that they have, and that only includes BOM, but also the Canadians, the Europeans, the Japanese. This is more out of the Europeans. This is the US. This is the UK. You can see all of the models they have here. And if you look at this, these bars represent compared to normal if we're heading toward La Nina or El Nino. And going from September into October and then November, we certainly see the models are favoring that, we'll call it negative INSO phase. In other words, it's tending to be more La Nina. And I do think it's going to be a bit more of a background driver than maybe they were leading onto with their inactive forecast. But I'm trying to be complimentary to their forecast. I want to add to it. And I'm going to tell you that we are not anticipating a strong La Nina again this year. Now let's take that and really put a number to it. The European model, which I consider to be the best right now for the middle of the Pacific, does keep those ocean temperatures, if you average the ensembles here, which is each one of these different forecasts, right around minus, let's see here, 0.5 Celsius. And that is borderline what we would call INSO neutral. It's not necessarily suggesting El Nino or La Nina, and it's hovering just below average. But I still consider it to be a more dominant factor moving forward. Because when we look back at what happens whenever we get these La Nina-like conditions showing up as we go, from spring and into winter, winter into spring, we tend to see that we favor wetter conditions. And I think that as long as the big models keep seeing that, and if the MJO and the southern annular mode stay where they are, then we are going to see more often than not wetter conditions on the whole as we progress through the next few months. And we just want to back that up with a little bit more evidence here. So let's talk about the near-term forecast of the MJO. It's spent a lot of time over the last several days and weeks over the Indian Ocean, and we've seen the Indian Ocean and its monsoon progress north as a result of it. Now, these lines that are in the background, the real squiggly ones, kind of tell us where we're expecting it to go. And in general, it's going to curl around, possibly hanging out pretty close to the null space, which is in the middle, but move over the maritime continent, and that would be over you in Australia. It's avoiding the Western Pacific, and that means there's a lot of subsidence in the Western Pacific, which is a kind of telltale sign that La Nina-like conditions are developing. Now, with that in mind, let's go look at our first bit of kind of a forecast here. And we're going to do that from BOM first. You see, their September forecast favors better chances of being wetter than normal in through this region. Drier over here in Western Australia. Okay, that's their current forecast. Does the ECMWF agree? And this is brand new data that I was waiting on to get released. So this is the time period of September the 6th through October the 6th. And overall, what we see here is that the model is not picking up on strong anomalies either way, right? In fact, it sees drier conditions here along our southern coast. And that's because where the southern annular mode currently sits, the storm track is farther to the south. That's something we've discussed quite a bit lately. And then as I play this forward, working our way on a 30-day kind of moving window, so this would be the 13th of September to the 13th of October, we do notice, just like BOM said, that there may be better chances of getting wetter than normal, especially right into these areas, possibly drier over in Western Australia. But it's not quite the same strength of signal that you see here. Now, from there, I'm going to go and jump forward to the 3-month forecast, and here's September, October, November, and then October, November, December. And what you notice is that BOM is really favoring the whole eastern side of Australia as having better chances of staying with above average precipitation. So then what we ask is, what is the European model suggesting? It's kind of got a similar pattern for, look at this, September, October, November. Wetter farther to the east with maybe a chance of being drier to the west. Now, as we play this forward, getting deeper into spring here, the European model is going to continue to favor above normal precipitation. And the reason why is that it is simply responding to the fact that it is projecting La Nina conditions to develop. The strength of this is what I'm going to be calling into question. And I completely agree with Baum's analysis that we're going to have to watch other sub-seasonal factors on kind of our week-by-week basis, which is why we produce the videos in the first place, right? Now, let's take all that and just set it aside for a moment, knowing that the longer range projections are for negative IOD and possibly weak La Nina conditions, which are more supportive of spring and summer, well, wetter than normal conditions. It certainly doesn't point toward large-scale drought development, and that's the takeaway. As we set that aside, what I want to go talk about now is what we're doing with temperatures. So if we kind of get this map scaled right here, we're concerned at this time of year about potential for frost. And so in the near-term forecast, the European model suggests that we're going to be seeing some cooler conditions behind this front that just swept through. It's positioned right here. And there's a big area of high pressure sitting here that's going to move over toward Western Australia. With higher pressure comes clearer skies, calmer winds, and that gives us the potential for a frost situation. Now let's go out and assess that. So what we're going to look at here is actually an hour-by-hour forecast of the temperatures from the 12Z model run here. And what it's going to show us is that as we progress through the colder part of our day here, and then watch this on Friday, early Friday morning, see this? We're going to see these temperatures, and I know this is quite difficult to see, but we're going to be seeing these temperatures hovering down here about 1 to 2 Celsius in this part of Western Australia. And therefore, we are going to have the risk of frost in this area. That frost risk is going to happen in those low-lying areas where you get cold air that drains down, and we'll just need to monitor it very carefully to see if those temperatures spend much time below freezing. Because after we get there and then get it eventually into the weekend, while we still get those overnight temperatures in that 1 to 4 Celsius range, we no longer see the same level of frost threat here. And by the time we work through Saturday and into Sunday, the cooler air starts to spread to the east. Now, the frost that you see showing up here, of course, is at higher elevation. But we will get an area in through here that's also going to have those overnight lows getting down there, again, 1, 2, 3 degrees Celsius. As we play the sun out past Sunday and get into Monday, that might be the coldest day over here on parts of Victoria and New South Wales, with a broad area that's going to be seeing these overnight lows getting down, again, to that 1, 2, 3, 4 degrees Celsius range. There's some chilly air that's coming through here. But then the pattern seems to break. As we get out here toward Wednesday and Thursday, we no longer see those deep, cold air temperatures settling into place. And as we work our way out to the middle of the month, we do tend to favor above normal temperatures, especially in the northern whole 2/3 of Australia. Now, thinking of that, let's at least see what that front's going to do to precipitation. So as we walk through the next few days here of our precipitation pattern, what we see is as that higher pressure builds in, see it right there? That's what's going to be helping out the frost. Calm winds, large spacing in the isobars. But there's a broad front that's sweeping right through this area as we begin our weekend. This would be Saturday very early in the morning. And that passes through Victoria, and eventually through New South Wales, and clips parts of Queensland as high pressure builds in behind it. But that's just coming through Friday into Saturday and a bit into Sunday morning. Now, after that goes through, high pressure takes over, as you see here to start next week. And it just slowly sides to the east, and that's where that cooler weather goes with it. And then behind it, we start to get a warm-up happening once again. And we do see the tail end of a long front, given our very southern storm track, try to clip parts of Western Australia. And this is all the way out there to next Thursday. But going ahead and letting this play all the way out to day 10, that's about it. That's all we see coming. So I can add up all that precipitation, and you're going to see most of it's dominated by the front that sweeps through Friday, getting into Saturday and Sunday. And total accumulated precipitation amounts in here could get to be 12 to maybe 20, 25 millimeters. Heavier pockets in here that could get up to 30 to 40 millimeters of rainfall. And of course, the elevation changes are going to help with the lift in the atmosphere. So that's where we're projecting the rain coming through here as we work our way through this weekend and into early next week. And after that, as you see it filling in down here, that's that more southerly storm track due to the position and strength of the southern annular mode. And just playing it forward while we do add up more precipitation. Look at that, adding up right here on the windward side of Tasmania. We don't see a lot of additional precipitation at all through the next week being added into Australia, the rest of Australia, okay? So if we look at week 1 and then stretch this out to look at week 2 only, this would be the week 2 precipitation pattern, and we're comparing it to our climatological average. And we do see, interestingly enough, that going on that time period of the 9th through the 16th, we actually favor near normal to drier than normal conditions at that point. And that might be due to the MJO resetting and starting to move. And given that the La Nina is not pushing real strongly right now, there's not a lot of evidence to support above normal precipitation at this point. Now, let's think about this, and then let's broaden this out in terms of temperatures over the next month or so. And I'm going to talk about these temperatures next because we're going to be curious about how quickly into spring we do bring the heat back in. Because it appears that from September 15th to October 15th, we're going to favor above normal temperatures. And it's interesting, I've been looking here, and much of the most recent spring time periods, October, November, December, going back to 1950, have really lately shown an increase in overall spring temperatures. But we're going to question, is this upcoming, springtime period going to be another one of these very warm, springtimes for us, or are we going to go back more toward, climatological average? If you let the European model decide, this is what it's got for October, November, December. In fact, it's not right now showing any place across Australia that's going to carry a warm bias moving forward. And it's even got cooler than normal conditions here in this part of New South Wales. So that's what that forecast looks like as we stretch this out here. So we started with the long range and we finished with the long range. And in the middle took a look at what the near-term precip patterns are going to do and any concern we might have over some frost here in the near term. Now, around the world, a lot of things are really impacting global ag. And I'm going to point out a couple of those things to you. In the United States, let me shrink this up. After going through extremely dry conditions in our corn belt, western corn belt into this area, where we also grow a lot of legumes, there's some spring wheat, winter wheat, all of that in this area. Tons of rain have recently moved in here. And we just had a powerful Category 4 strength hurricane named Ida that spread flooding rains all the way from, way down here in parts of Louisiana, where we grow a lot of cotton. We also grow rice, we grow peanuts, and let's see here, corn and soybeans, that's all grown down here. Then spreading into the Northeast, this would be where New York City is located. And as we think about that, I'm going to turn the volume off on this so I can talk while I play it. I'd like to show you my Twitter feed just to show you what some of this flooding has looked like. This was what it looked like when the winds were battering one of our big cities down south called New Orleans. You can see the winds from this tropical cyclone just pushing here against the building. They're about 80 mile an hour sustained winds in this particular case. And the flooding we had in the south, this is due to storm surge here. Some places the storm surge was up to 15 feet deep. Now, since then, if I scroll up on this really quickly, I'd like to show you what came through the Northeast. And in our subway system in New York, this is what the flooding looked like. It was coming up through some of the drainage here in the subway, and it, of course, was pouring over into the tracks, as you see there. And we've seen lots and lots of flooding in the Northeast because of this. Now, it's mainly in our highly populated areas, but I have one other video I would like to show you here, if I can find it real quick. Yeah, it's this one. We also had massive tornadoes in New Jersey, which, again, is just south of New York City. All of this embedded in the circulations of our powerful tropical cyclone. And I guess one more. Take a look at this one right here. In this apartment, the water was just coming in, bursting through the door and filling the lower levels of this apartment here. Just amazing to see the power of that water, where some places were measuring 3, 4, 5 inches of rain falling in just an hour. And while the East Coast is dealing with that, our West Coast continues to burn. Look at this. This is at sunset. We can see here in California, this is Northern California. So this strip of land right in through here leads the nation, leads the United States in the production of over 40 different fruits and vegetables. And the mountains are burning all around it. And the smoke is actually burned from fires that have made it over the peak of the Sierra Nevada, which is a very rare thing. So this is kind of what the United States has been dealing with as of late. And continuing on, I'd like to show you what's going on in Europe. There's a very large high pressure cell that's moving in here. And the low that's curled up into this part of Russia brought rain for the first time in a while through this part of the Russian wheat belt. The Black Sea, remember, is right in through here. So we do expect to see that over the next several days, much drier conditions are settling in here after what had been a relatively wet summer in this area. So we'll watch that carefully here as we progress forward. And finally, I want to come a little closer to home here and just show you what's going on north of the equator and on your side of the world. The Indian monsoon, quite aggressive right now. A lot of above normal precipitation after kind of coming in fits and spurts throughout the season. And in China's North China Plain and Manchurian Plain, we do expect to see some heavier rainfall there. We've had flooding along what's called the Mayu Front, which stretches right in through here where more rain is expected as well. So that kind of gives us a quick update on what's happening internationally. But I hope you understand that I think the most important thing for us to really be discussing moving forward is this La Nina really going to stack up to be one that influences the pattern, or are other more short-term factors going to be the dominant mode here? And most of the time, the second La Nina is the weaker of the two. So I think we have a lot to digest and think about as we progress forward in this forecast, and I'll give you another update soon. By the way, we get new long-range updates from all those models in our next video, so I'll look forward to preparing that and delivering it to you, okay? Appreciate your attention. We'll talk to you again very soon. Thanks.